we have been talking about what it means to run for office this cycle, which a lot of folks think is doomed for Democrats. But I am of the opinion that there is a lot of hope. We saw yesterday Summer Lee, of course, won in Pennsylvania. Others not so much. Our dear friend Rep Rab, we got to give him a shout out. He won. He crushed his opponent. Crushed his opponent yesterday. So I actually see that there's a lot of potential in this race because of just how far the right wing has gone. They staged a coup. They're pushing up QAnon supporters. It is really hardcore. And of course, everything that happened with Roe. I really believe that we have a shot, especially in these primaries and in rural areas that many people would think progressives can't win in. Our next guest, a former Montana legislator and a congressional candidate in Western Montana, also an IBEW, that's the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, 206 member, Tom Winter. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You look so outdoorsy. This is like, I am just like such a New Yorker right now going, look at that shirt and that beautiful, there's like green behind you. Western Montana,
I got a outside and 2 rescue dogs beneath my feet. So it does feel like the outdoors are inside right now. So yes, the smell is not good either.
So tell us about Western Montana, because as you know, as a New Yorker, what do I know? I don't know about Western Montana. I feel like they're just all going to be a bunch of Republicans. But am I wrong?
Well, no, some of them are, honestly. So one of the big things that we say, this new district, I think it's important to say, Montana is the first state in the union to lose. So we had 2 Congress people at one point. We lost them 30 years ago. So we only had 1 for a state the size of a medium-sized country. And now we have 2 again. And so now I am running to represent the Western seat, which is if all, New Yorkers often go to Colorado to go skiing. So if you think about Colorado, Montana is similar in that about a third of it is mountainous and kind of what you think of when you think of Montana, like mountain goats, campfires, guys in flannel. And then the eastern part is flat and looks like Kansas. It's ranch land. This new district is those towns you think about, like Bozeman or Glacier National Park or Missoula. It's the Western seat where there's trout fishing and, there's hunting and outdoor stuff. You can go skiing. This is where I am running to represent. And you're saying it's full of Republicans. Yes, it is, partly. And part of the thing that I say, and part of the reason I'm even here before you and think I can do this, is because I am one of the few, I think I was the only Democrat to win a contested seat other than our sitting senator and our former governor in the last couple of years. I ran for office in a semi-rural, suburban, but very rural area to the west of it, in a district that voted for Trump plus 11 points. And it was held by a Republican. He was also the Speaker of the House's son, which no one told me. And as a 30-year-old, they didn't tell me. I mean, I honestly, when you run in a district, when you're a young progressive Democrat running on Medicaid expansion and ensuring people have healthcare in the first place before we even, and I want to, of course, talk about universal healthcare, and we will and do in this campaign, but we were just trying to defend Medicaid expansion. I did not think we had a prayer, but we were able to knit the community back together. And I won as a young first-time runner progressive Democrat in a district that voted for Trump plus 11 points. We never had to shy away from the things we value as progressives, as Democrats, as leftists. We were able to win that seat just going door to door and saying, what do you think you deserve from your government and from your community? And it's the same stuff, you and I believe in, I think.
Definitely do. So tell us about who you're running against now and what are the dynamics of this race that was your primary?
Well, so we're in the primary. First, I want to say in the general, we got Ryan Zinke, who is that buffoon who worked for the Trump administration, walked in on a literal white horse, literally wearing like combat fatigues for no reason. He's an idiot. But he also stole public lands and sacred land. I know. I'm just telling you.
Hang on 1 second. Just flat out, I don't think I've ever heard a candidate say against Republicans. He's an idiot on the record.
This is not just me saying it, and this is not just dirty campaighning. I have the privilege or not to leave Montana and go to DC. And when people say, I say, well, in the general, we'll be running against Ryan Zinke, and people like and go like that. And I'm like, yeah, but he's incredibly well funded, and he's endorsed by Donald Trump, and he's been the Department of the Interior head, and he is corrupt. I mean, so he's not the smartest guy, but he is willing to sell himself and sell the dignity of this office, which he will do and is doing. In the primary, however, I don't call my fellow Democrats idiots because they're not. We have 2 other people in the race. We're many more, and then we were redistricted. There's Ryan Zinke right there. Okay. The 2 people I'm running against, again, we are in a small state with very few Democrats, but we do win. And so with respect to the others in the race, I do say things that are like just differences with us. One would be, you know, we're the only race arguing for full-throatedly universal healthcare. We're the only race, the only campaign talking about how we should not be rationing healthcare. You know, we talk, you know, and openly also, we don't take oil money, we don't take corporate money. I'm the only person in my race who's won an election whatsoever. One of my primary opponents actually ran as a Republican and then switched to run as a Democrat 5 years ago. The other one is a professional fundraiser who recently moved here from Los Angeles. We welcome newcomers, and you will see that we certainly do.
Names?
We are
name drop.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to name drop my opponents.
No, it's good. I understand, but we're in a safe space. This is a progressive space. Okay, they're not going to go follow them. They're going to, you know,
go hopefully help me out. You can donate to my opponents here. So Monica Tranel is, again, someone I know personally. I know both these people, but she ran as a Republican, worked for a Republican state, United States Senator here, Conrad Burns, having extremely, extremely problematic, I'd say, views on people of color. Slave auction. The guy was bad. In her poor judgment, and as a Republican, she worked for him. And then ran as a Republican and then ran and lost and now is running as a Democrat. She ran as a Democrat, previously a centrist Democrat, and lost to a white supremacist. And now a white supremacist, white nationalist is the person who sets my utility bill rates because Monica was unable to pull out that race. Our local liberal paper endorsed the white supremacist. And then I led a campaign, not knowing I'd be running against this person who lost the race eventually, trying to get the editor fired for endorsing a white supremacist against the person I'm now running against. It's complicated, small town stuff. But the thing is, we have 2 people in the race, one who just moved here, the other who just became a Democrat fairly recently. And I am alone amongst the 3 of us. I'm the only one who's won an election whatsoever in the first place, and let alone an election that was with Republican support on progressive values. And that's the case we make. That is, you know, my service that I did in the legislature to cancel in-state tuition, which basically cancel student debt. I apologize on that one. Also to legalize marijuana, which the people actually ended up doing. They took portions of our bill, especially around criminal justice reform, went to the voters. Montana legalized weed. You know, we have done this taxing rich people so that we can zero out taxes on middle class and working families. This kind of stuff is the stuff we were working on from the beginning in the legislature. And it's just a natural progression into the Congress. And that is what we're doing every day on the doors, talking to people, making sure we're bringing community together on these issues that really, as you know, poll well across party lines. It's just centrist and corporate Democrats and the entire corrupted Republican establishment that believes this is not possible.
Is it true that a lot of rich people, like, is it like your LA fundraiser opponent, are moving to Montana and setting up their estates and waiting out the apocalypse and, you know, doing what they do, I guess?
They are. I think it's
but
more
how much?
also. How much? So this is problem, and this goes so strange. So we think that above 60% of the electorate was not born here. I myself was born in the Midwest. Montana is experiencing a generational increase in population, which will have reverberations throughout my lifetime and our lifetimes, and also will lead to more congressional seats. We're only seeing more of an influx of people from wealthy coastal cities moving here. The thing that's happening, though, is originally it was many people moving to Bozeman. You see this and you've heard about it. You know, rich people who can cash out of their suburban house and buy the fanciest house in town in Bozeman, Montana. And then Bozeman got Ben Affleck and, you know, Jennifer Lopez going to ski. And then it became like this international place where, you know, housing costs, you know, I think a median house price is now 1.2 million in the biggest city in our state, or the second biggest city. Which is like, it's an Aspen, but it's an Aspen without a Denver. So now we're facing these horrible inequity and inequality in our housing market, in pay. We're becoming a state where you are either the servant class or you are being served. And we cannot allow that to happen. We have a long history of egalitarian movements here and progressive movements. So yeah, one thing is you have the rich people who are coming here and they have like a 7-bedroom ski chalet, which they also stock with food. And then there's, but this later thing has been, which is, a better looking version of prepper. But then we're also getting,
exactly.
And this is what's disturbing to me, though, is as
tax
I'm
the
going
preppers. I got
tax the preppers, tax the rich preppers. But we have this problem as well of there are people coming from, say, this. I have a neighbor of mine who recently moved from Seattle or the Seattle area, fed up with. Sorry, now I'm getting a call. Fed up with the terrible internet out here as well. Just completely fed up with what they considered like the liberal Washington state bias or whatever they were talking about. I don't know what it is. They're just mad. So they came here. Free speech, yeah, whatever. They're mad that they want to tackle climate change. So they came here, and just wait till I get elected, and they'll be unhappy too. They can move to Wyoming. They are here because they watch the show Yellowstone. Literally, they are here because
God, stop it. I can't.
They saw one too many like bad westerns, and they think all of us are like shoot 'em up. It's just not the case. And I will say to people like, no. You might think this is all this big belt buckle bullshit territory. That's not what it is. We have one of the most progressive state constitutions in the nation. We have such a strong right to privacy, which was written on purpose during the fight over Roe 60 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, to protect the right to an abortion. We have a constitutional right to a clean and healthful environment. We don't have at-will employment here alone amongst the states. We don't have right to work. We have very strong union and labor history. This place is actually unusually progressive, especially when you're talking about Idaho, Wyoming, and all of our neighbors here. Right. We have been leading in these kind of populist progressive issues for 100 years, and no one has really talked about it. It's just been happening because we're in the middle of nowhere and we're very few people. And so now we have these new people coming who ingest all this media about like Westerns and, toxic cowboys and Indian shit. And they do not know what they're getting into. And I am coming to their door and saying, welcome. And also please abide by our community standards of concern for one another, of, support for labor and of support for environmental causes, and also support for our Native American neighbors, sisters, and brothers, and on the land on which we live. I live on the reservation myself, though I'm not Native. This is a place that has been actually at the forefront of these issues for a really long time, but we're being overtaken by people who are simply fed up with having too many organic markets next to their places in Seattle. So they're moving here, and we are trying to, teach them our ways. How's that?
I think it's less about the organic markets and more about people that don't look like them. I'm just gonna.
It very well might be. Yes,
Tom. I'm sure I'm so fascinated by Montana. I've never watched Yellowstone. I know there's a conservative bias with it, but I may watch it now. I'm fascinated by Montana. When's your primary? We have your website up so people can go donate, but yeah, when's your primary?
Our primary is June 7th. Ballots are out now. We are on the doors.
Wow.
And I'd say one of the things we're doing, and please support us if you can, we are the first campaign to unionize in state history. I'm a union member myself. We help the Democrats unionize. We are out here fighting the progressive populist cause in a place where people don't think we can win, but I have already won. And if we are not able to hold the line in places with a deep history and a living history of our values that you talk about here on your show, we can't do it in other places either. And so please help us win this thing so that we can bring a possibility of, honestly, I think of working together between where we are here for our progressive rural values and the progressive values of urban and wealthier places in the coasts. We have the same concerns and the same challenges. And I am here to try and make those links so I can fight for my constituents and constituents who have these same problems across the country.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Good luck. Ballots are out. Make calls, text for Tom, whatever you can do. There aren't that many people in Montana, so you can make a real difference. All right. Doesn't Kanye live in Montana? That would be funny if you're like calling, like, hi.
I know. No, he lives in Wyoming. Instead,
Wyoming. I'm sorry.
We got Justin Timberlake, which is like.
There you go. That's more funny. fun. All right. Take care. You are not already. Make sure to like and subscribe us. Jump in that, wherever you're watching us, Twitch, YouTube, like, subscribe, share on social media. I know many of you do, and I really appreciate that. We have an Instagram account. We have a Twitter account. And if you're not already a patron, please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. There you can find swag and lots of other stuff. I'm going to be posting about other projects I'm working on. I think you guys are familiar with the work that I've been doing in Puerto Rico. on a documentary there. I am going to be reaching out to our patrons soon and just sharing some of the updates.